And welcome back to This Week. I'm pleased to be joined by my panel of political experts and friends. Former House Republican Caucus Chair, now with Frost Brown Todd, Tennessee Government Relations, Debra Maggart, and former Al Gore advisor, now the principal of Kopp Management LLC, Mike Kopp. Nice to see you both. Happy New Year, a little late.
Thank you.
Well, second verse, same as the first?
Not exactly. It's going a lot
If
faster.
anybody's surprised, they shouldn't be. He told us what he was going to do. And maybe he's doing more than that, but he's doing exactly what he said he was going to do on the campaign trail.
He sure is, and I think that's what people wanted. You know, people want their politicians or their elected officials to mean what they say and say what they mean and do what they say they're going to do. And he's done a whole lot this week. You can't even hardly keep up with it.
Well, I think it's no surprise that we're seeing some of the things he's doing, but I feel like it's already an overreach. And I was thinking about some of the executive orders and looking through some of them. I don't know that the American people voted to have him release all those insurrectionists, including white nationalists, cop beaters, cop killers. One of the ones who just got pardoned got arrested on a gun charge already. I don't think the American people voted for that. I don't think the American people voted for him to release restrictions so pharmaceuticals can start raising prices on drugs for seniors. There's a lot of things within these executive orders that I think are an overreach, and I think they're going to come back to haunt the party.
What do you think? I mean, he did say he promised to release the hostages, but he also promised that it would be case by case. We would look at some of these.
That's what they said at the beginning.
When it got to the day to do it, they decided we'll just let them all go.
Right.
Was that a mistake?
Well, I think, to your point, it might come back to haunt him. I know the Fraternal Order of Police came out against it. Law enforcement people tend to be folks that do support the president, that kind of thing. But to your point about the American people and what they voted for, you know, we have the former president pardoning his entire family, and they hadn't even been convicted of anything yet. And I think that it's not the same thing, but I mean, that's still kind of shocking.
I think that discussion can be. I think it can be made, but I think there's a difference between a presumptive pardon, which good or bad, than pardoning someone you know committed a crime, was convicted of committing a crime, and saying the crime doesn't matter.
But have we ever done that before? Have we ever had presidents?
Well, you say there's reasons for pardons, though.
There's been a history
or
there's been a history
of that. Done that? Okay.
Yeah, but I think again, it's you need to look at the individual cases. And he even said in an interview on Fox News the other day that maybe we should look at these individual cases, but that was after he pardoned everybody. So I think he's trying to have his cake and eat it too. But I think the bigger issue for me, and just watching how everything's playing out, Bob, is, and I think Deborah and I would probably agree on this, is what I see is an effort on his part to try to consolidate power in the presidency, all power in the presidency. And one of the things that I mean, you served in the legislature. I've worked with people in Congress and in the White House. I think we have 3 branches of government, so we can do a checks and balance on each other. And when you have anyone that tries to overreach and consolidate power, it's a direct threat to democracy. That's the thing that worries me the most.
There does seem to be some effort in that regard to try to move some of his nominees through without full hearings and you know, to bypass no FBI investigations. Are you concerned about that?
Well, that would be a concern. I think that he might, and I heard him talk about this, I think yesterday. He learned a lot the first time he was president. He trusted a lot of people. He didn't know what he was doing at all. He, you know, had people in his administration that were left over from this and that. And I think he's saying, okay, that's not how to do it. And so he's on this fast track of everything that he's trying to do, good or bad.
He's talked about movements forward of mass deportations in this country. There's no question, I think everybody agrees there's a crisis at the border that needs addressing. The question is, do we really need to use the military? Do we really need to do a mass deportation where we go into churches, go into schools, go into people's homes? That hasn't happened yet, but that's what the promise is.
That's what it sounds like,
yes.
Right. So I saw some polling yesterday, several different polls, where the American people, Democrats and Republicans, are supporting this, cleaning up this border, doing all these things. Now, when you get down to the human
specifics, yes.
Right, people may feel differently, like to your point about going into a church and taking somebody out and all of that. And again, it goes back to what I always say about balance. We're in this situation because things get out of balance with our government.
Right. So. Well, and I think, you know, there was a bipartisan effort when Biden was president in Congress to strengthen the border security. It was killed by Trump on the outside, who threatened Republicans to vote for it. So it was killed. Now he comes in, he's wanting to bring the National Guard in. If I recall, the last time he did this when he was president, there were plenty of stories about National Guardsmen sitting on their butts in camps along the border playing board games because there was nothing for them to do. We have border security. We need to beef up that border security. We need to make sure they have the technology that they need. Calling the National Guard is, again, one of those overreaches.
And the emphasis on finding people who have gone through the process and are deemed to be gone, and finding criminals should be the emphasis put on this. And I think he has said that, but he's also said if anybody else is caught up in the net, they go too.
Well, so the flip side of all of this is that you do have Democrat elected officials in some of our bluer states or more northern states that are saying, help us. You know, we do have a problem. I saw the governor of Massachusetts talking about this yesterday. The mayor of New York City has been begging somebody to help him. So again, here we are. You know, it's a balance in there.
But I don't think you'll find any government, a Democratic elected official who would support ripping families apart, who would support taking children who were born in this country and forcing them to go back to a country that they have no allegiance and were not born in. It's wrong. It's simply there's a lack of compassion and it's just simply wrong, and it goes against their constitution.
He signed an executive order to do away with birthright citizenship. It's in the Constitution. I think he even knows that this is not going to happen.
Right.
It's been stopped by a judge, but it shows that, as you were talking about, a consolidation of power, that the president thinks he can do this.
I hear too many Democrats looking at these executive orders and saying, "Oh, it's just smoke and mirrors." He really believes this. He's got the lunatics and the ideologues who are pushing this agenda, and he's letting them do this. I think we need to take it seriously, and I think it is a threat to our democracy.
And he is married to an immigrant, right? His wife is a legal, I assume she's a legal immigrant, and I'm not sure about the new vice president. You know, I don't know about his wife.
As we've taped this on Friday, President Trump is with Governor Lee in North Carolina. They're looking at some of the damage from the hurricane over there. He has talked about how FEMA has not helped these folks. That's not true. They've been on the ground. He wants to eliminate FEMA, wants states just to take care of these national emergencies. Is that realistic?
So when I was driving here, I was listening to the news and listening to him. He's over there right now as we speak, right? And he had actual folks that have had been victims of the hurricane and all of that talking. And he turned the press conference over to him, and it was pretty powerful. Over to them, and they were talking about he was letting them talk about the insurance companies and what FEMA did and didn't do. So again, you know, what's there to believe? And he's talking about overhauling.
But isn't the
that
federal
kind of
government the lifeline when you have these national emergencies? I mean,
well,
some of these red states with tornadoes, Oklahoma, Texas.
When the hurricane happened in Western Carolina, I have a lot of close friends that work there and live there, and musician friends in that part of the state. There were FEMA workers trying to bring aid, while Trump was on the outside using his social media, his Truth Social and other platforms to say, don't trust these government people, they're out to hurt you. So there were people, innocent people who didn't know any better, who rejected FEMA government help. And now he's sitting there going, FEMA didn't do enough. That's total hypocrisy.
So you have to see what these people are saying, though. You know, they're talking about how they've been living in tents, it's freezing cold outside and all of that. And, you know, I don't know what the answer is, but you know, it's going to be interesting to watch because he's going to do what he says. A
minute to go. Are we going to get any resolution next week on the voucher plan, on some of this immigration stuff, maybe weapons? Special legislative session begins Monday.
And I'm hearing that the vote is pretty close, if they even have it, if they even have enough votes to go to the floor for the voucher. Shame
on this governor for standing with people who lost their children at Covenant School, saying we're going to do something about gun violence. We had another shooting this week in Antioch High School. Nothing has changed. All we're hearing from this governor is thoughts and prayers and more legislation promises that are never going to mean anything.
You think it'll even be brought up?
About the covenant?
About guns.
No, because it's a special session and it's not in the call.
Debra
The call
Maggart,
happened
Mike
before
Kopp,
that.
appreciate your time and your insight. Always a nice discussion. Stay with us. This week continues in a moment. Thank you for spending part of your weekend with us. That will do it for another edition of This Week. I do want to thank my guests, Debra Maggart and Mike Kopp. We hope to see you back here next weekend for another edition of This Week. Between now and then, you have a great week.